Hey guys, what is up? This is JT and this is the Let's Grow podcast. Welcome back. First episode, mind you, of 2021. I think a lot of people are like, when the calendar flipped, like midnight 12:01, people thought like all the madness was gonna end. Surprise, surprise. I don't think it has, but here's what we can do. We can focus on what we can control. We can focus on our attitude, our effort that we bring every day, and we can love our neighbor. And I'm excited to talk with you about some of those things and being a person of value and growing and working toward your dreams and being a teachable, coachable person, learning from your surroundings with the first guest of 2021. And that's my dear friend, Mr. Mark Biggs. Mark, thanks so much for joining me, my friend.
Absolutely. So excited to be here, and hopefully we can bring your audience some value. I'm excited.
Absolutely. I know that we can. I know your story will certainly add value to others. Some things you've learned, some things you've done well, some things maybe you haven't done well, where you're at in your life right now. But let me give you guys a quick little background on Mark. Mark is I've known Mark for several years now. Matter of fact, I was teaching and coaching at the high school that Mark graduated from. And he was something like a gangster on the baseball diamond. Just going to throw that out there because he did have a professional playing career on the baseball diamond. And I'll let him share a little bit about those details and where he played at and what his tenure was like. And then after he wrapped that up, he transitioned back home and stepped into the financial services industry. He's now married, has a couple of beautiful kids alongside, with his lovely wife, and they are doing some dream chasing and some goal getting, and I'm extremely proud of Mark. Mark just recently opened the doors of Biggs Financial, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And so, Mark, give us a little bit of background, man, on where you come from, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised here in Bowling Green. Came from a very humble home. My parents were both hardworking folks. And didn't have everything, but certainly didn't hurt for anything either. So really taught the value of hard work from an early age. And that's kind of carried me and both my brothers and all the things that we've done. But so I went to Warren East, graduated there, played a professional baseball for almost 5 years with the Toronto Blue Jays organization, and had stops all over the country, played in Florida and a couple other states, and Vancouver, Canada for a summer, and just kind of been all over. And then for the last going on 5, almost 6 years now, been back home full time and in the financial services field, as you alluded to. And then Kayla and I, my wife, we've been married since 2015. We have a 4 and a 2-year-old, Austin and Madeline, boy and girl. So our home is wide open at all times. So,
Awesome.
That have kind of brought me to this point. So.
Totally. And you recently opened the doors of Biggs Financial Services. Tell us a little bit about what that was like, and share some excitement about where you guys are at right now.
Oh man, it's been a long process. We've thought about owning our own place and all that good stuff for a while now. That's always been a goal of mine, is to have my own business and work for myself. And where I was at before, I was self-employed, obviously, but having my own place has always been just a huge goal of mine.
Sure.
And so over the last couple of years, we've dreamed about it. We've wrote down things that kind of need to happen before we could ever make that jump per se. And then it just kind of came to fruition over the last 6 to 8 months, and we're so excited. We're about to hit our first tax season here. Tax season's right up on us right now. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll start to get busy and start seeing clients for taxes, and we're stoked, to be honest with you. So.
Well, congratulations again. Obviously you and I had a phone call a little while back, but just publicly on the podcast, want to congratulate you and say, man, I know it's a big jump, when you make those calculated risks, but at the end of the day, there is a little bit of uncertainty, right? There are some things outside of your control that when you make that decision to open up your own business or do business for yourself. And not only just that, I mean, we're talking about this is a brick and mortar scenario, right? You have your own office space. This isn't just self-employed from home. So
right.
There's a lot of responsibility there, man. So congratulations to you guys, and continued success, countless blessings in the days ahead. I know you guys are going to do great. And the reason why I believe you guys are going to do great, because the business is a extension of who you are as people. And that's what I'm excited to talk about today, Mark. And so for all you all listening today, whether you're a first-time listener on the podcast or you're a seasoned veteran, you listen to multiple episodes, you all know that I've had folks on this podcast from all different backgrounds, male, female, different industries, right? And one of the things that I want to talk with, through the conversation today, I think you'll pick up from Mark is how heady of a guy he was at a very young age. Now, he's not going to say that about himself, but I'm going to brag on him here a little bit because I learned that, when I first met him, that he was unbelievably teachable and coachable. And I could see that in him even in high school, which is why I felt like, man, this guy's going to be crazy successful, regardless if it's his baseball career or if it's, any other endeavors later on in life. Which, speaking of his baseball career, I used to joke around with him all the time whenever I was coaching at Warren East and he was still playing ball that we could just take it outside to the diamond and I'd crush one of his fastballs. I'd knock it right out of the park, which, mind you, I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't be able to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, but I like to run my mouth a little bit. But Mark, whenever you were in school, compared to most guys, like I said, I feel like you had an unbelievable amount of self-awareness, very respectful of your surroundings, the people around. What would you say contributed to that?
Honestly, first and foremost, it would probably be my parents. We were raised in a house where, you had to appreciate the things that you had because you had to work to get those things, whatever those things were. They could be tangible or intangible, but whatever it was, you learned to appreciate what you had because the hard work that it took to get whatever that was.
Yes.
That was probably one thing. But then, both of my parents are hardworking folks that, salt of the earth type people that they just love people. And so one of the big proponents of that was just learning that if you're going to gain respect from people, you first have to give it. You can't just be expecting people to know who you are or just respect you because of something that you may or may not be or anything like that. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it was always of offering of respect to people first and treating people with respect and with dignity and all that. And, that just always, that works wherever you're at, whoever you are, that always works, so I think that's probably the main thing, to be honest with you, is just being raised in a home like that. And of course I had two brothers that we were always beating up on each other and, regardless of where you were at. So I'd say that was probably the most of it, to be honest.
Those brothers kept you in check, huh?
Because if you know me, I'm the smallest of the three. So
I know. And that's crazy, guys, because you don't see it now, but if we're in the same room with Mark and he stands up, he's not a small guy. So when he says he's the smallest of the three, that's scary.
Yes, absolutely. So there's a little bit of humbling done there too. So
totally. Well, I appreciate that and you sharing that about your parents, because at the end of the day, I think folks who are on a trajectory, a path of humility and hard work and success and value, oftentimes it starts, not oftentimes, every time. Here's the truth of the matter is it starts inside the home. Now, granted, at the end of the day, there are a lot of broken homes where people come from situations that you and I maybe not even be able to really wrap our mind around. And Absolutely. They still find a way to grow through that in spite of that. But a lot of times, if we really want to, if we want to do a great work in the world, now you and I are both parents, we see that, wow, if we really want to set our kids up for success, all right, it starts with us. The responsibility lies on us.
Number one,
and yeah, that's right. And I know that you had present parents, because I remember whenever you were in high school, I remember seeing them at sporting events.
Yep.
And speaking of sporting events and how talented Mark was, I'll never forget this as well, because I gotta make sure I plug this. Whenever I first started teaching and coaching, my best friend, he was actually one of my best friends. He was actually in my wedding party as well. His name's Casey Simpson. He ended up getting the boys basketball coaching job right whenever I got the girls basketball coaching job. And so I was trying to help Casey get things going. He was trying to help me get things going. It's not every day that a school has a girls and a boys basketball coach who are literally like best friends. And so we were supporting one another. And I remember when he and I first stepped into those positions, we were like recruiting inside the school, trying to get more kids out, Yep. And Mark, I'm walking through the gym one day and this guy's in there just kind of goofing off, stroking some three balls. Then all of a sudden goes up and hammers throws a dunk down, and I'm thinking, like, what planet is this guy from? I heard he's really good at baseball. He's in here dunking a basketball, but he's not playing basketball. So share with us kind of what that was like for you in high school, because there was a couple coaching changes, and you just decided that you was going to focus on baseball, right?
Man, if he would have got that job 1 year sooner, I think the whole story could have been a little different, to be honest with you. You know, obviously for me, I don't ever try to look back and say I regret anything, because I don't.
Sure.
But, you know,
Sure.
you wonder sometimes what would have happened. But so I was a basketball player from probably the same time I picked up baseball, to be honest with you. I loved playing basketball. I loved the competition, the atmosphere, the whole nine. Just got the juices flowing. I love basketball. To this day, still love basketball. And so when I was a freshman, we had a certain coach. Coaching changed into my sophomore year, and then going into my junior year is when Casey took over. And that summer is when I really started to get some real attention for baseball.
Mm-hmm. And
so family and I sit down, and it was just kind of like, you know, maybe this is just kind of a sign from God saying, you know, there's a lot of change going on. You know, you've got some attention. Like if you focus these last 2 years wholeheartedly on baseball, you may be able to take this thing where you want to go.
Sure.
And we ultimately decided that it was best for me to not play anymore. And it killed me, because those are my boys out there that I've been playing with since I was, you know, 5 years old, still going to war every night. We weren't very good, but, you know, those are still your boys, regardless if your team's great or if they're not. So that was a hard decision to make. And it's so funny because when I was a senior, I ended up being Casey's teacher assistant, and we were good friends and still talk some to this day, you know, here and there. But he just hated it. And I would, if I was him, I would have hated it too, but it was just something that I had to do. But man, it was a hard decision.
Yeah, because I remember me and him like, all right, listen, dude, I'm going to do everything I can to help you get Mark Biggs in a jersey, and I need you to do everything you can to get Natalie Duncan in the jersey for me. Absolutely. Because both of you all were phenomenal athletes, multiple, you know, could play any position on any daggone sports team in school. And so, man, I'll never forget those days. And, you know, you mentioned being Casey's teacher's aide. Another phenomenal young man that we were talking about before we hit the record button today, Janus Briscoe, was my teacher's aide, who was one of your teammates on the baseball diamond, who went on to have a college career. Now he's a part of the Kentucky State Police Force. And hopefully I can get Janus on here soon and we can talk shop as well. But two stand-up young men, you know, and I could talk for hours about him as well, but we'll transition. We'll keep the ball rolling. But Mark, after high school, you know, you know, the recruiting takes place. You make a decision that you're moving in the direction of baseball. What are some valuable lessons that you feel like through your career? Well, let me ask you this question first before we talk about some lessons that you learned. At what point, you know, was there ever a point, you know, at the next level that you said, man, I'm not in high school anymore. Like, this is a different beast. This is a different game. And this is going to require a new level of dedication and commitment. Did you have any of those moments?
Yes. You started to see that as you started getting on like the national showcases and stuff. You start seeing, you know, the talent level where it's at just as high school kids.
Yeah.
But that first year, so you get drafted, and then that fall we went to instructional league. And that's where like a lot of the young Latin players and the high school kids that just signed and some of the young players that just finished their first full season come and just do it's like 6 or 8 weeks of just, you know, scrimmage games against other teams and a lot of individual drill work and just getting acclimated to being a pro and just a lot of different things. And I realized very quickly there that, you know, just the high school kids that came in with the Blue Jays with me, I mean, those guys were unbelievably talented. A lot of those guys went on to have major league careers and they're still in the big league, some of my great friends that we still keep in touch now. And my work ethic had always been there. But you realize that, like, all right, this is your job now. You get paid to do this. If you want to get to the big leagues, you're going to have to ramp it up and really tighten down your own process and learn how you can continue to get better amongst this competition level that went from here, you know, off the charts already, because you're playing against the best players in the entire world. It's not limited to the United States. The best players in the world are in professional baseball. So you're competing against everybody. And it wasn't intimidating because, I mean, I was confident in my abilities just like those guys are too. But it didn't take long to realize that, like you said, you're not in high school anymore. This is a different level of baseball. The game's faster. The talent level is elevated across the board. And it didn't take long to realize that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Another humbling situation, right?
100%.
So what translated from that time, you know, at that level, what translated into some lessons that you've used, maybe some skills, some discipline, some habits that you've now been able to utilize in your professional career now that you've hung the baseball cleats up?
I would say that work ethic for the most part is it's the differentiator between success of a lot of people, because regardless of what field you're in, there's people that are good, there's people that are great, there's people that are average, there's people that are better than you, whatever it is you're doing. But that doesn't mean that you can't be effective by honing in on what works for you, creating like a process or a routine or whatever it is that applies to whatever it is you do. And that's how you really separate yourself from other people. Is just being able to zero it in on yourself, knowing that you're kind of in control of what happens. You're in control of your attitude, you're in control of your work ethic, you're in control of how you prepare for the day, for the week, for the month, whatever. It's just a lot of self accountability, because when you're in professional baseball, it's all on you. You know, it doesn't matter if you're a football player or a basketball player or a baseball player, whatever your routine is off the field, all they want to see is results on the field. You know, you have to be able to produce, and whatever that looks like for you may be different than the next guy. And they don't necessarily, I don't say they don't care, they do, but they don't. Sure. If you understand what I'm saying. You just got to find what works for you and apply it, and then just take it and run with it. And you've always got to be adapting to, because situations change, things change, rules change, all that type of stuff. So you have to just be ready to adapt and continue to hone on your craft every single day. Because there's somebody that's right behind you that's working just as hard, because they got a dream to get there too.
That's right. That's right. And I like how you talked about, focusing on what you do well, focusing on your dream, your craft, doing what you need to do, because I think it's very easy to look around, and especially in the social media saturated world that we live in, to get lost in the sauce, comparing yourself to everyone else. And not everyone has your assignment, right? No. Not everyone is here to do what Mark Biggs is here to do. Not everyone is here to do what I'm here to do.
Absolutely.
And we start looking left, we start looking right, and then we lose our focus.
You get lost.
That's right. Totally. So now that you're at the stage that you're at today, once upon a time, your reason why for, building a baseball career and working toward that dream may have looked different than what your reason why is today. So do you have a different motivation at this season of life, Mark?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a very intrinsically motivated person anyways. So I always want to be, bettering myself and doing things and, achieving different things and all that stuff. That just comes with my territory. That's just part of how I'm wired. But the reason why is a lot different. Faith is number one. I've grown in my faith tremendously. Still obviously imperfect, just like everyone is. But that's been the number one thing, is trying to grow in that aspect. But then number two is obviously family. I've got a wife and kids to go home to that rely on me and depend on me. And, I love that. That's my favorite assignment of every single day, is waking up and taking that responsibility. And there's a client that walked in today that I've known for probably 5 or 6 years now, that he was talking about his grandkids. And he was like, somebody asked me the other day why I work so hard. And he was like, I showed him a picture of my grandson. And I told him, I was like, it makes it so much easier to get up and go to work, even on the days where you don't feel great or you don't necessarily feel like working, because you know why you're doing it. It's just completely different. It makes all those late nights, early mornings and all that stuff, it makes it so worth it. Just being able to be there and provide for them and hopefully give them a life that they're proud of, and translate these values that my parents gave me, hopefully to them, that they can grow up and replicate those things. So the why is completely different. Absolutely.
Totally. Mark, you mentioned earlier, you talked about probably the number one determining factor of, your level of self-awareness, your respect, your reverence for your surroundings, and being the heady individual that you have been, from a young age. You mentioned that your parents had nearly everything to do with that. And unless we brought it up on this particular conversation, most people wouldn't know that you lost your father, several years ago. And I saw firsthand. Now, I didn't get to know your father personally. I'd seen him in passing, but I didn't have an opportunity to build a relationship with him. But knowing the stand-up individual that you are, and how you have shared words of wisdom that you had learned from him as you've grown to become the man, the husband and the father that you are today, it's obvious that he played a very, very important role in your life. If you don't mind sharing with us, what are some things you feel like or what are some things about your life, or the way what you're trying to work to accomplish, that maybe pays homage to him or kind of carries on his legacy?
Number one is just work. He was always somebody that worked extremely hard. And he was always there for us, period. Regardless of what the situation was, if him and mom they would wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, go work for a few hours on a Saturday, and then come coach our ball team for the hour or whatever, and then go back to work just so that they didn't miss. They were just always there, and especially him. He just I don't know how to word it up. He was just always, his presence was always there. We were always scared of my mom. You know what I mean? She was the more authoritative figure, but Dad was the calm, cool, collected, and just the voice of reason. He was just always there and always it's like he had the right things to say at the right times.
Yeah.
And we had a very tight knit relationship. He was, obviously my best friend up until his passing. But just the conversations that we had, I cherish those now, and I hope to pass those things along to my son and my daughter as time goes on.
Sure. I appreciate you sharing that, Mark. And
yeah,
if you with the things that you've learned from your parents, with the things that you learned from your playing career, what you're now learning about business, something that you and I have talked about before is, the generation that's coming up right now. Yes, granted, they have their opportunities and they have their challenges, just like you did, just like I have. And, we're living in a very interesting time in human history, needless to say, right? Needless to say. I mean, there's a lot of things there's a lot of things we could focus on, but we're not gonna unpack, a lot of the things that happened or transpired in this last year. Maybe we'll save that for another conversation. But if you were stepping back into a high school today and you were going to be mentoring some young men about the success that you've had, or, some things that you've done to get where you're at today, what are some things that you think you would share with them?
I'm a huge proponent of hard work. Obviously, I know I've alluded to that a couple of different times, but just putting it on yourself, waking up every day and looking yourself in the mirror and holding yourself accountable.
Taking responsibility.
Correct. Exactly. And that doesn't have to be just from a strictly, work or business type standpoint. You got to hold yourself accountable in the way that you respect other people, the way that you love people, the way that you treat your environment, anything and everything. You got to hold yourself accountable, because your actions are what leads to the consequences that you face, positive, negative, or indifferent.
Sure.
And I think that's where it gets lost a lot of times, is the accountability factor. Just knowing that a lot of what happens in your life, there's plenty of things that you can't control. Obviously, I've been through those types of things too, and everyone has. But a lot of it is based on your attitude towards life in general, towards your day, towards the people around you, towards your family. And I would just say to respect everyone, period. You don't have to like them and be best friends with everyone, but you need to show people respect always.
If I could drop some praise hands emojis in here right now, I would.
There's just so much, man. I just don't understand with things that are going on, but just respect people and love people where they are. And like I said, you don't have to be everybody's best friend, but everybody deserves your love and respect, in my opinion. And also going back to, high school young men and all that good stuff, don't put limits on yourself. Don't put yourself in a box and just think that I have to do one certain thing to impress my parents or someone else or whatever. Don't put limits on yourself. When I was coming to high school, going to college, I thought I was going to go into medicine, med school, and all that good stuff. I'm nowhere near that. Haven't even thought about that for, the last 10 years, so don't ever put limits on yourself. And it's okay to fail at things at times too. That was one big thing, getting released from baseball. That's what I worked my whole life for. My wife had just found out that she was pregnant with our son, which was our first child. So it was kind of not a crossroads, but a decision to make. You're going to sit here and, wallow in your self-pity, or you're going to get up and go to work and figure something out.
Boom.
So, and that failure is a hard thing to overcome, because that's what you've worked for a long time. And they just say, you've worked and you've exhausted all your options and all your effort, and it just doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work, but there was a reason for that, chapter in your life.
That's right.
And so you got to be able to overcome failure and adversity and continue to just push forward. It doesn't mean you're going to dive right into the next thing and just be head over heels successful, but you got to be able to deal with some adversity and some failure, and be able to, throw some counter punches and do that whole thing as life's throwing them at you. So just don't put limits on yourself, and believe in yourself always.
Man, that's
Main
good stuff. And I didn't mean to to direct that question necessarily toward young men,
Yeah,
but young people in general. But obviously, we obviously have influence with young males and have an opportunity to speak to them, especially from a sports perspective in our background. So I appreciate you sharing some of those nuggets, Mark, and even talking about the failures and the setbacks and having to grow through that and having to face that adversity.
face it head on, man.
That's right, man. You can't run from those things because the obstacle is the way, and failing essentially is learning. But
100%.
we have convinced ourselves that failing is bad, that not getting the result that we want is a terrible thing. At the end of the day, we learn from every experience that we have.
100%. And it goes back to kind of, if you're looking around at other people trying to compare yourself, if you're not like hitting that stride when someone else is, you may just look at yourself like you're a failure. Y'all are just on different paths. You know what I mean? And I think that goes back to kind of the social media age too. And I'm guilty of it just like everyone else is. So I'm not acting like I don't do it, because I do. It's just, you've got to know where you're at, stay in your lane, and just continue to press forward.
That's right.
Regardless of what happens. There's going to be things, once again, that are hard and detrimental to your life that you just can't control. You still got to wake up the next day and continue to do what you want to do.
That's right. That's right. And speaking of failing your way forward and being successful in your endeavors and, just endeavoring to live a life of purpose and value and provide a great service in the world, I know that there's a lot of people that you look up to, folks that you listen to, books that you've read, and people that you learn from. Who are some people, Mark, that in the past few years, how old are you now, Mark?
27.
27. So over the past few years, as you've developed into this professional and you're working on honing your craft, who are some people that you've learned from or folks that you look up to and would consider mentors and could say that, hey, listen, I've learned something from these folks, and I think other people should pay attention to their content as well?
You put me on to one of them a long time ago, if you remember Gary Vee.
Yeah.
We had that conversation years ago. I love Gary Vee's stuff. He brings a lot of energy and a passion about life in general, entrepreneurship, and some other good things that I like. I like Tony Robbins from a financial standpoint. He's got a lot of good things that he talks about. And those are two kind of the main ones that I've kind of listened to and watched and read the most of probably over the last 5 to 6 years. Locally, I look up to my brother as well. He's a very sharp, savvy, business-minded guy, owns his own business and in a different industry completely than what I'm in, but has found his niche, found his way. Look up to my little brother as well. He's self-employed and is carving his own path. And then there's a local guy, Steve Sheldon, who's a very successful businessman and in this community that my family's known my entire life. So those are people that are close-knit to me, but from like a content and kind of a broader spectrum, Gary Vee and Tony Robbins have been two pretty influential people for me, because I've absorbed a lot of their content and still follow them to this day and interact and try to stoke up just any little tidbit that I can, because a lot of things with anyone that shares a lot of content, you can't like directly connect to everything.
Sure.
But you can always pick up on little tidbits from all kinds of different people that you can apply in certain ways to your life.
I agree totally. And I've always heard that leaders are readers and learners are earners.
100%.
And so being a student of your craft, right? When you were a baseball player, you were a student of the game. If you want to be a professional, you want to be great at what you do, be a student of the game, right? Always be learning. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have your face stuck in a book every open minute of your day. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to read, a chapter a day, or that you always have to be listening to something in the car. But what it does mean is figure out what works for you and put yourself in a situation where you are learning from people who are farther along than you are.
100%. Right? And it doesn't necessarily always mean you're learning from their successes either. A lot of times some of the biggest takeaways you can get from people is errors that they've made or mistakes that they made or things they may have done differently.
Sure.
And they share those with you, or if it's a public figure, they share some of those types of things or questions you ask in conversations with people that are close to you. Sometimes you learn the most from things that they did not do correctly the first time.
Totally.
Or if they could go back, they would do it a different way again.
That's right. Which expedites your growth, which
100%.
very well may help you avoid the same mistake they made, and
100%.
you get to where they're at faster. And surprise, guys, listen, successful people, truly successful people. In other words, I'm not talking about from a monetary or possession type of success. I'm talking about people who live a life of value, who care about serving, loving, and caring for the people around them. Those folks want to help other people.
100%.
Right? The truly successful people are always looking for opportunities to throw the rope back. And so one thing that I would highly suggest as we work to close this call down is, if you're someone who's Mark's age right now or younger, right, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone, shoot an email, hit somebody on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and say, hey, listen, I'm working in the field you're in. I appreciate what you've done. Would you give me 15 minutes of your time so I could pick your brain and ask some questions? Guess what a person who actually cares about helping people is going to do? They're going to say 15 minutes, of course, man. I'll be happy to answer some questions for you.
100%. And the people that you want to be in those discussions with are the ones that are going to reach out immediately and say, oh, absolutely, I'd love to sit down and talk with you, because they want to learn about you too. You're going to be picking their brain, but they're going to be learning about you at the same time. And I found that very quickly, because there's no roadmap or no one book that you can read that says, all right, this is exactly how you want to get to where you want to go. Step, do this, and you're where you're at. It doesn't work like that. And so you've got to be pulling from different directions and just seeking advice and seeking help. And a lot of that just comes back from humbling yourself and just saying, I need help. I haven't done this. I'm no expert here. I'm a newbie, or I'm green in this field. I just want your help. I'd love to ask you a couple of questions. No strings attached. I just want to ask you a couple of questions.
That's right.
That's how those things grow a lot of the time.
Totally. And so, speaking of asking for help and providing mentorship and advice, if there's someone younger than you that's thinking about getting in, doing the same work that you do, Mark, or stepping into that industry, what are a few pieces of advice that you would offer for someone who's looking to maybe step into the financial services industry, or even potentially start and own and operate their own business like you? What are some things you would, a couple pieces of advice you would offer them?
I would say just do as much research up front as you can, because you want to be able to have a baseline of knowledge with whatever industry or field that you're trying to get into before you try to kind of insert yourself into it. So just do as much reading and learning and all that good stuff as you can up front, but just also know that experience is the best teacher. You're not going to have all the answers before you're ready to do whatever it is that you're going to do. And you have to be okay with that, because you got to be able to course correct. You got to realize when you make a mistake, just own it, fix it, and don't do it again. You know what I mean? And people understand that. And that it makes it a lot harder for people to, if you do, make a mistake or make an error or just screw something up, when you own it and just say, hey, I messed this up, but I'm going to make it right. It makes it a lot harder for people to just stay upset with you over that mistake. That's so, right. And in business, you're going to make mistakes. So just go ahead and know that up front. And just have the humility to say, yes, failed in this aspect. I'm going to course correct, and I'm going to do it right the next time. First.
And I would venture to say that based on the industry that you're in, if you do make a mistake, it means even more being able to admit it, because you're dealing with people's money, right?
100%. And it's a lot harder to make that call and say, hey, I made this mistake, but I'm going to fix it. But you got to do it, you know? And that's just part of being accountable. And, it all goes back to holding yourself accountable for your own actions. And a lot of times those things are unintentional, obviously, but they're going to happen. Whatever industry you're in, those mistakes are going to happen. And just know that you can course correct. And one of the big things with learning anything is when you do something incorrect or wrong, just learning from it and not doing it again, and continuing to move forward. So a lot of people will say, try to build up your weaknesses. A lot of times, and I've heard Gary Vee say this 100 times, I'm sure you have too, if you can focus on your strengths, you can help navigate around some of your weaknesses if continuing to build on the things that you are good at. Sure. And I think that's huge.
Totally. Speaking of strengths and weaknesses, my son had on a Michael Jordan jersey earlier today that I had whenever I was a kid. And I know it sounds crazy, but I actually remember a long time ago thinking to myself, like, I don't want to get rid of that. Like, maybe one day I'll have a son and and he'll, and he'll wear this or whatever. And so it's pretty cool. I mean, it swallows him in whole right now,
Oh, sure. That's all right.
but that's all right. He'll grow, as my dad used to say, with all my Christmas gifts, you'll grow into it.
Grow into it. That's right. That's
but
awesome.
you were talking about strengths and weaknesses. I think about MJ and how whenever, he was phenomenal at putting the ball in the basket, but he developed himself into one of the best defensive players on the floor. He wasn't always the best teammate, based on some documented evidence, right?
Yep.
But
some practices that have been shown.
He was a competitor, and he was great at what he did, but he also focused on other ways to get better and develop his game, but not at the expense of continuing to do what he did well.
Bingo.
Which, by the way, Mark, I got to ask this question. Obviously, you're a little bit younger than me, so are you more of a LeBron and Kobe guy, or are you on the MJ train as well? Or do you even like having the GOAT conversation?
I don't like having it because I like all three for different reasons. I like that you included LeBron and Kobe because I just don't think LeBron and Jordan compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
I think it's the question, I think, is more of a generational type thing because I never got to see Jordan play in person.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do still think he's the GOAT. LeBron is a close second and Kobe's a close third, in my opinion. But I still think Jordan is the greatest of all time when you consider everything. And I'm not just talking about rings, just the whole entire persona, their game, their teams, the whole nine. I just think, and LeBron's career is not over, so that may change.
That's right. Yeah.
I do still think Jordan is all-time number one. Personally.
And people have to remember that without MJ, there would be no Kobe and LeBron, because those guys were modeling themselves after MJ, right?
And they both had documented evidence saying that.
That's right. That's right. And it's not by accident. It's not by accident that there are Jordan branded NBA jerseys currently 100%. At the moment in the NBA. Like, that's kind of a big deal, right?
That's a really big deal. And he's made more, I think, off his shoe sales annually, he makes more than he did his entire playing career. So, I mean, that's a whole brand,
Yes. And speaking of shoe sales, this really makes me feel small when I really think about it. There are days whenever I'm having a tough day and I think to myself, like, man, like I wish I was killing it today, or man, I wish I was getting after it, or things were in a little bit better shape than what they are. And then I stop and think to myself that I graduated high school the same year that LeBron James did, and he signed a $93 million shoe contract before he ever stepped foot on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how about just universe, just make me feel even worse about life.
Yeah, why not? When you bought his mama Hummer, the whole nine.
God, dude, it was nuts.
What a head start.
For sure. Well, Mark, as we work to wrap up, since you're a baseball guy, who are a couple of your favorite baseball players growing up, some teams that you follow or have enjoyed supporting?
I've always been more of I followed certain players than I did teams. I wasn't like a huge fan of any specific team. We grew up watching the Braves, so my family loved the Braves, of course. But my favorite player growing up was like Jeter and Alex Rodriguez. Both of those guys were like probably my top two favorites. And now, like, shifting towards more modern day players, love Mike Trout. Mike Trout's an all-time talent, and I think he's probably going to go down being the best baseball player that's ever stepped foot on a diamond. So watching him play and watching his ability, especially in the last, being just removed from baseball for 5 or 6 years now, seeing what he does compared to the talent level that's there now, it just mesmerizes me. So Jeter and A-Rod growing up for sure, but Mike Trout right now is just unbelievable. And he makes it look so easy. Just like all the great pros do, they make it look so effortless. But Mike Trout's, he's probably going to end up being the GOAT in the baseball conversation before it's all said and done.
Good. So we have this documented right now, so we'll be able to look back.
Mark that one down. I'll stand on that one for sure.
Well, Mark, what would you say is why is being teachable and coachable so important in becoming not only successful at the work that you do, but also in becoming a great spouse, a great parent, right? Being a person of faith. Why would you say being teachable and coachable is important? As we close down, for all the listeners here, why is that such a big deal?
Number one, we don't have all the answers, and If you don't believe me, ask my wife. But we don't have all the answers, and we need help, and people need us for different reasons. We all have different perspectives, we all have different backgrounds, and things change, things adapt, the world changes, all that good stuff. So you have to be willing to accept new things and change some things, even if that means you turning internally and saying, all right, I've got to do some things differently, if these things are going to work and play out the way that I want them to. And you just got to humble yourself, honestly, is the main thing. And just know, like I said, we don't have all the answers, and we need other people. We need God first and foremost. And other people need you too. And so to be able to help reach other people, you have to first be able to humble yourself and let, other people have access to you. And so that you can, learn from their perspectives and their points of view and all that good stuff. And I just think it goes back to humbling yourself before anything.
Man, that's good stuff, Mark. I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you giving us some of your time, sharing some of your failures, your successes, what's important to you. I always love catching up with you. And, as we jump off here, any words of encouragement or anything on your mind, on your heart that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Just first and foremost, thank you for having me. And I hope that the people that watch or listen to this can gain something from our conversation and apply maybe one little tidbit to their life that makes their day and their lives better in some way. But no, I hope that this year is the most fruitful and plentiful year for you, for your family, and for everyone, to be honest with you. Everyone had a different 2020. Some people great years, some people obviously, terrible situations. But I just hope that for everyone that hears this, watches this, that it's the best year for you going forward, and that puts you in a place to succeed to levels you could not even imagine going forward.
I can dig it. Tell us where we can learn more about Biggs Financial Services.
You can hit us up on our website, just biggsfinancialservices.com. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook at Biggs Financial Services. And just follow us along there.
I can dig it. And services that you guys provide, just to give us a snapshot.
We do total financial planning. We can offer some insurance, life insurance, stuff like that as well. And we focus on tax preparation a ton, especially around this time of the year, obviously. So a little bit of everything as far as finances go. So we can help you out one way or the other.
Good stuff. Well, Mark, again, congratulations and continued success in this season of life. Happy New Year to you and your beautiful wife and your lovely children. I miss Bowling Green, Kentucky more than you can imagine. Man, that place holds it's a special place in my heart because, the larger percentage of my adulthood was spent there.
Absolutely.
From 2009 to 2016, and then moved over to Somerset with my beautiful wife, Jayla. And so, but I miss Bowling Green, man. And I promise you, whenever I make it over that way, I will definitely drop by and pay you a visit. But guys, listen, this has been another episode of the Let's Grow podcast with my special guest, Mr. Mark Biggs, owner and operator of Biggs Financial Services in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Check them out on their website, hit them up on social. You definitely want to make sure that you follow along this guy, someone you can gain a lot of value from. But with that being said, folks, we are signing off. Remember, don't just go through life, grow through life, and everybody can encourage somebody. We will see you all on the next episode.